Hey, Austin here. Today I'm going to go over how to install WSL2 for Windows 10 and 11. WSL stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. So what it is it is an actual fully running Linux installation on running within Windows. You can do a lot with that, especially for development. So we'll go over how to exactly get that set up for you. First thing to know is you need to be able to enable virtualization in your UEFI slash BIOS on your motherboard. This is completely dependent on your specific hardware, your motherboard and your processor specifically, whether you can even do this. And you'll have to do a little bit Googling yourself with your motherboard and get into your BIOS and see if there are options to do this. Unfortunately, there's not really a good general way to show you how to do this. It totally depends on your manufacturer. Additionally, to be able to run WSL, you need to be running Windows 10 version 2004 or higher, or any version of Windows 11. So at least I can show you how to check which Windows version you're running. You can press the Windows key and R, then it'll pop up this run window, and then you just type in WinVer like I have here, press enter, and you should be able to see your version details right here. So I'm running version 21H2 of Windows 11. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to open our PowerShell and administrator mode. So we just press Windows key, type in our PowerShell here, run as administrator. And then we can see that we have WSL at least installed by just typing in WSL, and it will detect and tell me we have no installed Linux distributions. Then we want to do a WSL update to make sure that we're all up to date, so we have the current features for WSL for our machine. And it looks like it is all up to date. If you did have updates, then it would download and install them here for you. And then we can check which Linux distributions Windows Subsystem for Linux is supporting. So we'll do list, list online, and it shows us everything that we can download here. The majority of these, so Ubuntu, Debian, Kali Linux, and then the LTS versions of Ubuntu down below, they're all distributions based off of Debian. So they'll all function pretty similarly, have a lot of the same toolkits out of the box, and then OpenSUSE and SLES are SUSE-based distributions, and so they'll function a bit different. So we'll just work with the generally the Debian distributions here, specifically Ubuntu. So in order to install, we're just going to do a WSL install, and then if we wanted to install Kali, for instance, we would just type in Kali-Linux after this D flag here and press enter. But since we're just doing Ubuntu, which is our default, or at least Windows Subsystem for Linux is default, then we just have to do --install. And type in Ubuntu, there we go. Download Ubuntu. Okay. And it'll pop open a new window with Ubuntu right here, and it'll say installing, and it'll take a few minutes to get set up. Okay, now it's going to ask you for a Unix username. This is your root user, so you want to make sure this is what your main user account is going to be that you're going to use to interact with the operating system. So mine's just going to be Austin. Type in my password. Okay, and now we're in. The first thing you typically want to do, especially if you're just a standard user, is you want to do an update and upgrade for your packages for Linux, just to make sure you have all the proper security features and other utility features as well. So we'll do sudo apt update, enter our password. Now it'll fetch all the updates. We'll do sudo apt upgrade, and this will install all of the updates. Press yes here, and then you might be able to walk away for a sec. This could take a minute depending on how many things Ubuntu needs to install.
2 hours later.
Let's go ahead and do a restart of the Ubuntu operating system. So for WSL, you have to do wsl.exe --shutdown, and that will close down the instance of Ubuntu. And then you will just pull it up back here. So it'll take another second because it's restarting up the instance. And if you have Windows build 22,000 for Windows 11, when Windows build 22,000 later and your WSL is all updated, you should be able to actually run GUI applications. So today we're going to do GIMP. So we'll do sudo apt install GIMP-y. And it's going to ask for my password.
A few moments later.
And now we have GIMP installed, so we should be able to just run GIMP like this. It'll give us a few warnings here, but after a few seconds, it will open it'll open a GIMP. And then the next thing we're going to do, I'm just going to close this window, close our PowerShell here. I'm going to show you how to set up the remote extension for VS Code in order to interact with WSL2. So accept, next, yes. And I'm going to create a desktop icon and check. I'm going to check all of these just for me. The most important one is to add to path. It'll require a shell restart, but this is, I believe it's necessary in order to actually open a code instance from the terminal. We'll go next, install. And we'll go ahead and launch. Okay. So here we are, and then we'll go to our extensions. So it's this remote-WSL. It's actually, let's see. Remote development. This full pack here, this remote development pack, is what Microsoft recommends, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and install, and then, okay, we just do Control-Shift-P, and then remote WSL, new WSL window. And this is one way to do it, where you, let's see, just use the VS Code command palette, and it will automatically install the VS Code toolkit onto Ubuntu for you. And you can see that it's active because of the, down here in the bottom left, you have the WSL Ubuntu. It'll show it's running in Ubuntu. And when you start a terminal, you can see it's our Ubuntu terminal. And we can see we're above the projects directory, so we can go into projects, touch new file, and we should see in our Explorer should have this new file right here. And there you go. You're all set up for development on Linux in Windows. I appreciate you guys watching the video. I ran into a few issues, so I'll detail some troubleshooting steps if you run into the same ones. But from fresh installation, this should be pretty straightforward. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Give it a subscribe if you want to see my next videos as they come out. And I really appreciate you sticking around and watching.